All right, we're not live at Build 2016, and I'm with my C++ friends, Marian and Ankit. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Marian.
Hi, Charles. I'm a program manager lead on the C++ team, working on lots of cool things. I guess latest would be the Update 2 release that we had, with lots of hot announcements there.
Yeah, I think I'm Ankit Asthana. I'm a senior PM working in C++ team. I've been mostly working on non-Windows technologies like Android, iOS, Linux. As you know, C++ is really a cross-platform language.
Yep.
And a lot of the stuff that we're doing these days is about not only providing a great experience on Windows, but also extending the experience for Mac and Linux developers as well who are using C++.
Awesome. And we're also going to show using Visual Studio Code.
That's right, yeah.
With C++.
Yeah, so I think like Visual Studio Code, I mean, for those people who might not know, is really the new product in the Visual Studio family of products that brings out a great, or aims to have a great edit, build, debug experience. And if you take a look at the Linux side of things itself, right? I mean, we've heard a lot of feedback that when it comes to like language services, especially IntelliSense, code navigation, debugging, the same story, or the same kind of tools that exist on Windows with Visual Studio and Xcode on the Mac and so on, that's not the case in Linux. So starting today, actually, we just released an extension for C++, which is supported on all three platforms, Windows, Linux, and Mac, for Visual Studio Code.
Awesome.
So, and I think like the other thing about this extension is that, I mean, it provides you, it's still a preview experience. This is the first attempt at doing it. It's still a preview experience. There's a lot of work that we still need to do. But currently what you can do is you can do things like code navigation from a language service perspective. So you can do things like peak definition, go to definition, search or navigate to symbols in your sources. And the other thing you can do on the Linux platform today, on Ubuntu 14.04, we're limited to that for today or for this release, is debug your C++ code. And that brings in like things like call stack, watch window, conditional breakpoints, and so on.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so where does the compilation happen?
So there's two ways to really go about the compilation process, because it is the editable debug cycle. So VS Code or Visual Studio Code is not so very heavily integrated with the build system itself, but it kind of like calls out tasks. So you can actually program a task or configure a task to be calling a makefile or calling like a CMake file to be able to build. But the experience is really about the editing and debugging and then being able to build, but not so rich as you would see with property pages and so on in Visual Studio itself.
Understood.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You have to code it up.
That's right, Mary. Yes.
And one of the great things about Visual Studio Code is that you can install it in, 90 seconds?
Yeah, I think code is really fast. I mean, I think if you saw Amanda's demo earlier today about the new acquisition experience for Visual Studio, that's pretty fast too. But code is
catching up
to
the Visual Studio Code experience.
Yeah, but code is definitely faster. So I mean, that's the case. Yeah.
Cool. So since we're talking about it, let's log into your Ubuntu and let's take a look at this.
Right. Absolutely. So here you guys have this is a Mac running Ubuntu x64 14.04, and I already have Visual Studio Code open. So let me show you the extension that we launched. So there's a very quick way to do that. You can see that's the extension that I've downloaded from the marketplace. If you want to download it yourself, you can actually go down and pick us there. We're the last one on the list right now because it's sorted by downloads.
Okay.
That's how they do it.
Sure.
So over a period of time, we'll pop up. But if you just go ahead and you download, since I already have the extension here, all I need to do now is just start throwing in C++ code.
Okay.
So I can go here and I can say, I actually open one of the recent folders here, and I'll go with this one here. So this piece of code is really, this is the OpenCV computer vision library. So it's pretty rich C++ code in it, and it's pretty large. And out of the box, the way the experience works in VS Code is that you'll see things like, I can actually go ahead and say @ and you can actually go through the different symbols that you have here. And that's kind of like one of the features that we have. So that's basically, parsing all the symbols in your sources and being able to traverse that.
It's happening in the background.
It's
pointed it to the folder, right?
Right, exactly. Brian brings a good point. As soon as you start loading your sources, basically our tag parser starts going into the sources and starts creating a database for these symbols, and that's really what's being used here to populate this.
Now that's recycled from Visual Studio itself, right? I mean,
Exactly. We're using all the investment we made over the years to kind of grow our expertise properties and collecting symbols from parsing C++
And doing
code,
it efficiently.
Yes, and we're enabling now in Visual Studio Code. So.
Awesome.
So I think Marion tells me all the time in corridors, we have the best stack parser. So I think like with that said, now
Only when I'm bragging, but no.
So now that we've ported this to Linux and Mac, we should have the best code navigation experience when it comes to these kind of things like search for symbols and so on.
Amazing.
So what I'm showing you here is basically search within the same file, and you can see it's really fast. The other thing I can actually also do is I can actually also look for types here. Sorry. You can also look for types here. So these are actually now types across your different source files, and I can actually navigate to different types here as well. So you can see that feature again. So these are the two features that we have right now. That you can just go and use for navigate to symbols and so on.
Okay.
The other sample I want to show here very quickly is again another OpenCV sample, and with this sample I want to show you some other features. So again, same concept here. You have a bunch of C++ source files, and then I can actually go do other things as well. For example, I can go here and say go to definition. That takes me to definition for the particular scalar type that I was using in my code. I can also do something like peak definition, and that actually shows me, within the same editor context, where this particular type is defined.
Excellent, man.
So that's the language service experience we have. In addition to this, the other thing you can really do is you can also build your language service experience. For example, in this case, you will see this green squiggle. Do you have any idea what that could mean, Charles or Marion?
The green squiggle?
Oh, I can answer?
It can't
Yes.
find it can't find the file?
You can't find a file.
Exactly,
So essentially, so we basically built an experience that as soon as you get into VS Code, automatically things will start working for you. So for example, all the includes that you see that are currently in your working folder will automatically find them and start giving you a language service experience for that. But certain includes which are outside the scope of the VS Code working folder, for those includes, you can actually go and set up the include path yourself. So in this case, I can click this, add include paths, and then build my include path here, right here.
Oh my God, JSON.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so VS
JSON
Code
is eating the world, man. All right. I'm sorry.
No, it's true. So it's a JSON-based file, and essentially you can just come in here and provide your include path, and as soon as you do that, you'll be able to get rid of these squiggles and so on.
Okay.
I'm not going to do it right now, but that's something else you can do. So that's really your language service experience. We also have now the debugging story, and I think it would be great if I show that as well. If you guys
I
are
agree.
interested.
But a quick question on the
Yeah.
language. One of the great things about using an IDE in the first place is the helpful hints. And C++ developers need those too.
Yes.
Right? So for example, I noticed in one of your files you're using size T, which is always a good idea if you want to do things like support 64-bit. So are you offering that level of intelligence up front? Like if I'm writing some code, you're going to say, hey, actually you might want to not do a C-style cast, maybe use one of the const cast things. So
Yeah.
Something better.
exactly,
Standard.
even though it's the same exact thing. So that's my question.
Yeah, I think right now, I mean, as I said, this is a preview experience, so we're offering you the ability to be able to navigate your code.
Yeah.
But IntelliSense and autocomplete and fix-it and suggestions, quick fixes is something else that we're definitely working on, and that will be something that will come out soon in this extension. But this is our current story for now.
Yeah, and I think that experience is a bit more developed in Visual Studio.
Absolutely.
Per se, we added refactoring operations, quick fixes. We added code generation tools in this release specifically. And to your point, I think we're working very hard on Neil's team to build core checkers on top of our static analysis tools to kind of guide the users towards those C++ code guidelines that Bjarne is talking about
Awesome.
at CVPCon. So those tools are there. They're obviously only available on Windows right now, but we're starting integrating more and more, and we'll see how we can integrate the experiences, tie them together.
I mean, and the use case for VS Code is exactly this. I'm on a Mac, I'm running Ubuntu. I'm on a Mac, or I'm on a PC running Ubuntu, or I'm on Windows and I don't want to wait forever to install Visual Studio. So, is that a fair statement? I mean, I'm kidding about the last part, but I mean, is it a fair statement to say that I'm going to use this when I want to go cross-platform and have an editor experience that's lightweight, quick, and efficient?
That's right. I mean, I think Marion can answer this much better than I can, but on the Windows side, we already have Visual Studio. And I think Marion talked about some of the features earlier this morning as well.
Yeah, definitely recommend checking out our talk. It's probably going to be available soon.
Yeah.
The recording. We talked about language service productivity, about the new debugger features, the perf tips, memory profiler. all the kind of the end-to-end experience that you expect from an IDE that knows the state-of-the-art support for C++.
Absolutely.
Specifically for VS Code, the experience is geared towards the fast edit, build, debug cycle of going in, changing the code, getting the binary outputted, debugging some quick things, and moving on
Yes.
to other tools or other experiences.
Excellent.
And I think
So,
sorry, I would just add to that I think like we've, like you take a look at our story on Windows, right? I mean, sometimes it's a little bit hard to move into VS because you might be using a different build system other than MS Build to get all the features working, like code navigation and debugging and so on. But now with this experience, with being able to use the VS Code code editor, you can just kind of like bring in your working folder, and irrespective of your build system, whether it's MS Build based or Make based or Ninja based, it will give you an Angular service experience. And then you can make it better and better by configuring it more using the properties file that I just mentioned.
Great. Excellent. So let's look at the debugger. And
Yeah.
then we're going to get into the 6 reasons why, you sure there's only 6, why you should come to Visual Studio
It was
2015
very hard
Update
to
2.
compress them into 6
I understand.
reasons.
Yeah.
But
Great.
we should see the debugger demo.
So I think the other thing I want to show you is I'm going to bring up this sample. So this is a sample where what's going on in the sample is that it's a CPP REST SDK that we created back in the day. And what this does is that it actually queries the search engine with a type saying, build 2016, and then it will give you the results in an HTML page that you can query.
Okay.
So I've already configured this sample to debug. So the way you actually go and configure this for debugging is there's 4 things you have here. The first thing is really your files view in VS Code. And the second thing is really about searching across. The third thing is about your integration with source control. And the fourth thing here is the debug panel.
Okay.
So the way you configure a debug panel is, again, another JSON file. It's called launch.json. And in this case, you currently have, I've currently defined 2 configurations here. There's a launch configuration and there's an attached configuration. You provide the path to the program itself. So this is the program that I have here. Valentin Isaac is my really good friend, and I'm actually querying him to see what I get in the internet. He's back in Redmond today.
Okay.
Those are the arguments that I'm passing to this program, and then basically that's all you need to set up. And once you have this set up, you can actually choose this menu here to basically go either launch or attach, and then be able to drive the debugger that way. So since I already have all this configured, I'm actually just going to hit F5 or the equivalent of F5, which is basically deploy, and that will launch the debugger. So you can see here now that the debugger is actually launched and actually broke it actually hit the breakpoint that I actually had set at the start of the program.
Nice.
So you can see here, you can actually make these bigger. You can see the locals window. You can see the output file name, the file buffer, and so on. You can see the call stack here. You can see the breakpoints that you've added here on different lines, and so on. So that's the basic debugging experience. In addition to that, you can also do other things. For example, I can actually right-click on the variable here, say edit breakpoint, and then I can actually add a conditional breakpoint here as well. So we have conditional breakpoints. We also can add a function breakpoint here, for being able to, if you want to break on entry on a function and so on. So that's kind of like the experience that we have for debugging. You can do a little bit more, you can hit different breakpoints and all, but this is kind of like a preview experience. It works well today on this one distro of Linux. This is something that we're porting over across the board for other distros as well. We currently have a core CLR dependency that limits our effectiveness.
What's the core CLR dependency?
It's really just some C# code where debugger depends upon today.
Your debugger depends
Yeah,
upon?
debugger depends
Why?
upon it. It's using a layer of technology, the MI engine and so on, that basically depends upon it. But essentially, in 2 weeks from now, the release that we're planning another release on the 14th, when Visual Studio Code 1.0 goes, when it becomes available widely. So that's something that hopefully we can try to aim for that one as a next release channel to be able to fix these issues. The other thing is, if you notice the Visual Studio Code announcement, there's actually a session right now going on tips and tricks. One of the other things there is that they have an insiders build, and there's a bunch of fixes that we have for a debugging experience. For example, for multi-threaded code that actually that are already a part of the insiders build. So if you want to really try out a debugging experience, I would really say get the insiders version of Visual Studio Code, install a C++ extension, and then get started on that.
Okay.
So I don't know if that gives you an idea.
Excellent, man. This is great to see. This is
And
really
this is going
great
to be
to
something
see.
that we'll be fastly iterating over, and we'll have many releases. Still preview.
Yeah.
We're still collecting the feedback. We do want everyone's feedback.
And when is it going to become
and
open source? I mean, everything else is open source.
We're
Mario
still
smiles.
discussing that. I don't know if we have.
I'm just,
a
you don't have to
timeline
make an
yet.
announcement. I mean, but it would be interesting to see if something like that could happen, and then
Yeah, I think there's pieces that will be very interesting to document publicly. Yeah?
Sure.
Absolutely.
really impressive. I was impressed with how fast things were.
Yeah, I
Just
think
by looking at it, I think it's nice.
Yeah, I think it's worth trying out. I mean, especially if you're really looking for a better GDB debugger, that's our debug engine right now that we work on top of, and you can really try to use this and see how your debugging experience is. Just the fact that when you hit different breakpoints and things are all automatically set in context for you, like the locals window or the watch window, the call stack, it automatically changes for you. It will save you the effort of passing 6 or 7 commands, BT or regstar or inforeg, to be able to dump those kind of information on GDB command line, because the editor will do it. The editor debugger in VS Code will do it automatically for you.
Okay.
So it's worth trying out and seeing what you want to do. The other thing is, if you go to our README section and the doc section that we have, I can show that here really very quickly. So I'm just going to the marketplace here, if that works. And you can just basically go and see under the extensions that we have for Visual Studio Code. So they have a lot of extensions, but one of the new extensions, as I said, is basically C++.
Awesome.
And as I said, this is in preview. But if you go here, one of the other things that we're doing right now is that you can actually go in here, and right at the end, you'll see a section here to sign up for us. And if you want to chat with us directly about the experience that you have, you can really just come in here, sign up,
Okay.
and get in touch with us, and then you can help us build a better product, a better extension tailored for your user experience.
Yep. Great.
Cool.
Yeah.
That
Very
reminds me,
nice.
we also have a similar sign-up form for people wanting to migrate to 2015 Visual Studio. We just announced it today. Totally out of context, sorry.
fine.
So anyone that is interested in migrate 2015, we're going to offer free virtual dev labs that basically the Redmond team is going to help them migrate one-on-one on Skype.
Awesome.
Yeah, so James, STL will be on call trying to
Right
help
on.
the people, and then we're going to
Make
collect
sure
all this
STL
information.
is nice to people
He's
when
very
he
nice.
sees their source
Yes.
code. All right.
He's nice to source code in general.
Yes.
So I
Okay,
have,
good.
I have no worries.
All right. And I'm
And
just
then-
kidding. I know STL.
We're going to collect all this information and share it publicly as well with anyone else that wants to upgrade it to Visual Studio 2015.
So what are some of the problems that you're seeing? Somebody has an old code base. They're still on Visual Studio 2008 or 2010. What are some of the problems and what are some of the hesitations? I mean, it's always hard to just move a giant code base over, but what are some of the canonical problems you're seeing in the real world?
Yeah, so there are two sides of the story. We present the value add that we always put in the new release. So we talked about the new code gen operations. You get you faster code, more secure than all the productivity features that we put in the product, like the refactoring tools, the new debugger features. We talk about the new static analysis features, and that is the value that people want to migrate to. But then it's a cost-benefit analysis of how costly it is for me to take my large code base and move it to 2015 to get those features. Because we're also evolving very aggressively the compiler to have to be more standard conformant. We do time to time introduce breaking changes, and that creates a friction in adoption. Basically, there's a list of breaking changes. People have to kind of go through it. It's a
Okay.
mechanical process, but that's where we want to help them with the migration and see kind of the results.
The
at
virtual
end.
labs will help with
The
that.
virtual labs, yes. Then it's also about writing modern code, and one of the big traits of C++ is that it's compatibility with the old style of C++, but we kind of want to close that vault in and only let people write that type of code, that risky type of code, only when they have to, and stay in this new space where it's modern C++ code. It's as Bjarne defined it in the C++ coding guidelines.
Yes.
We have the core checkers and the GSL library that are available in 2015 and kind of keeps customers towards not venturing outside that box where they get safety code and basically less bugs.
Okay.
I think another trait of C++ obviously is portability.
Sure.
So one of the things we're striving is to bring the portability of C++ and make it available to all the customers in one IDE, allow them to target all the different platforms that are out there available. So Ankit was mentioning earlier, in VS we can target Android, iOS. We just announced today that we have a new extension for Linux development, and obviously we can target the Windows desktop and UWP scenarios. So you can create one solution with shared code that allows you to debug it on all machines, to build it on all machines, and the refactoring operations work as familiar as you are with Visual Studio in general.
Interesting. Yeah. And so, if you're writing a code that say has UI, like not everybody does that, but some people do.
Yeah.
You have to still separate out your heads, right, for the Linux or whatever you're using for a UI that's going to be on Linux, and then whatever you're going to be using for a UI that's going to be running on the Mac, and then of course Win32 if you're running on Windows, or maybe UWP. Well, that's not really C++. So
it is.
But let me ask you.
Is supported in C++.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the question I have then is, how are you telling people to think about building cross-platform applications with UI?
Yeah, so that's a
in
good
C++.
question. I think that there's a lot of people that try to build their the lower level code, their library code, that is shared across all platforms without excluding the UI and excluding the platform specific layers in C++ today. And they basically go and define that centrally. Its shared code is identical, maybe very few if-defs that are specific in there. And then the UI either gets built in a UI framework that is available across all platforms, or it gets rewritten every time for each platform. And there are different advantages and disadvantages for each of the approaches. Obviously, on the write once and run everywhere, Xamarin is one technology that is available. Qt is another one. There are a few there, but there's a lot of people that prefer the native UI on each platform to get the look and feel of that platform.
Yeah.
And I don't have a strong recommendation one way or the other. I think C++ is there to enable all scenarios possible, and we're positioning there the middle layer where all your business logic is defined in C++ and it's cross-platform. And then on the top you have many options from which to pick. Anything?
No, I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it.
So, as we wind down here, I guess the question I would ask is, when is VS Code going to get so feature-rich, right, that it essentially becomes Visual Studio running on Linux? I had to ask that. And of course, this can be edited because we're not live.
No, I think that's okay. I think VS Code will...
I'll let you answer that one, Marian.
Yeah, let's put Marian on the spot.
Let's put Marian on the
So
spot.
when is Visual Studio going to hit everywhere, man?
So Visual Studio Code is definitely an editor, and I think it's going to stay an editor. We want to make sure that we enable the core editing and the core debugging experience for C++ customers in VS Code. And the answer to a fully fledged IDE is Visual Studio, like the ALM interactions and the unit testing and all the other like source control, advanced source control will be in Visual Studio.
Cool.
Actually, source control is in Visual Studio Code, so that's a bad example. But
Yeah.
end-to-end experiences will be there.
I think so, yeah. I think like scenario like NCrunch is popular these days. Scenarios like NCrunch, unit testing, stuff like that Marian mentioned. I think those are good examples of what needs to be perhaps. And the other thing is Visual Studio Code, for example, doesn't allow you any custom UI.
Okay.
So, we're not even there yet, but it will be an interesting experiment to try out refactoring where you want to basically suggest the user, 15 places, I'm changing this. How does the user choose between that? So Visual Studio Code does have certain limitations in terms of UI and stuff, and I think that also drives a lot of the, which feature goes there. But the point of Visual Studio Code is to be really lightweight.
Yes.
And to keep and hence you really have to the debug cycle. So if you're doing something once a week, then it's not a scenario that needs to light up in VS Code.
Absolutely. And my question was sort of half joking, but it's impressive to see that you got this working at all, and really good job. And thank you for coming on Channel 9, not live. And keep look, next year, is Lightbulb over there? No. Next year we're live with C++, man. See you guys. Thanks
See
for
you guys.
coming
Thank you.
on.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charles.